Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to episode 13 of In the Red Corner. It's a good news day in Melbourne. We're finally out of lockdown. We're tasting a bit of freedom. We'd normally be recording this on a Friday afternoon, but I imagine by that point this week we'll be on the beers, as Dan Andrews would say. So here we are, Wednesday lunchtime, smashing out some content for you. As ever, I'm joined by Mr. Grant Winstanley. How are you, sir?
Fantastic, mate. I'm just praying we get that cold taste of beer very, very soon. So I'm all good this end, mate.
We could be a matter of hours away. Awesome. Like I said, we're recording this at our lunch break, so I'm going to crack straight into it. With everything that went on this weekend with the UFC and the 254 card, we'll obviously touch on that in a little bit. But what it has done has opened up, a bit of a chasm there in the lightweight division. The belt's been relinquished by Khabib now in his retirement. So, my opening question to you, Grant, is what would you do with the lightweight division now?
It's interesting. It is. It's if you Dana, what do you do? I mean, automatically, you go straight to the Conor and Poirier fight in obviously January 23rd or whatever it is. And I have a feeling that will they look at that fight and say the winner will face sort of Justin Gaethje? Now, I don't know whether Gaethje will be classed as still an interim, because it's kind of what do they do? Because if Khabib's gone, well, do Conor and Poirier, do they fight for the interim? Because how can they have a lightweight champ title? How can they have a fight with no champion and then it not be for the belt? So do they try and dress it up as it's interim versus interim? And then try and crown a champion there. And in my opinion, we've said that for quite a long time now that the UFC are desperate to get the belt back on Conor. So, and then the other thing is look at everybody else in the mix. I could really see the winner of Conor and Dustin versus Gaethje. I could also see a Ferguson versus Chandler in the mix as well. Then I can always see a Hooker versus a Diaz. And then you've got, even the potential losers of that. You've got Charles Oliveira in there as well. So it's everyone is there for the taking. So, we could see this belt move around a little bit, similar to like the lightweight division. The light heavyweight division. But I've got a feeling that once it's on Conor's waist, I think it will remain a little bit. I think Khabib was the only one he can't beat. But the interesting thing for me, Matt, is if Conor's now back in the mix, I don't think he starts to box Manny Pacquiao anymore, because Dana won't want him running away when he's very much in the title picture. So, Matt, what do we do? What do we do at lightweight?
It's really interesting. You're exactly right there with Conor. I think Dana's going to have to sit down with him now and say, what do you want to focus on here? It's really interesting. The first thing to consider, I guess, is that the Conor Poirier fight is all but done, but I don't believe it's signed yet. And right. I wonder if Dana might, put a hold on that for a second. But say we did the Conor Poirier, you've got that one. You've then got Tony and Chandler, makes a lot of sense, but it leaves Justin Gaethje out. And then you've got Dan Hooker, you've got Charles Oliveira, you've got Paul Felder, Diaz. They're all knocking around there. The question I asked was, what would you do?
Yeah.
For me, I think the UFC, the most value is to get that belt back on Conor's waist as soon as possible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which means that when he fights next, it's got to be for the title. The question is, who's he fight? The easy one was Poirier, because the fight's pretty much made. But I don't see how you can ditch Justin Gaethje all of a sudden. I think he was the interim. He fought for the title last. Yes, he got beat by Khabib, but so was everybody else in that mix. Everyone else has lost to Khabib. I would be very tempted to throw Gaethje back in there with Conor in January. I think that means that you do Poirier and Chandler, which screws over Tony Ferguson a little bit, but he's the one that's coming off the loss, to Gaethje. He's fallen down the rankings a little bit. Yeah. It opens up a fight potentially between Tony and Dan Hooker, maybe. Right. And then you've got Diaz as the odd one out. I don't know whether he would want to take on Oliveira. It doesn't feel like a big enough name.
And it's injuries, don't forget. We're predicting all these fights to happen. Things happen. It's the fight game. There's backup fighters, there's injuries that happen, and all of them people that we've mentioned, by the way, all of them, the common denominator is they will step in. Every single one of them will step in on 1 day's notice, never mind 3 months or whatever it would be.
You're right, and Dana's he's got a problem, but he's got a very good problem to have because he's got a bunch of killers there. They're all going to want this belt.
Yeah.
God knows how it will play out. They're your contenders. How they match them up is down to who's ready to go, what Dana wants to do. I think like you said, the common denominator for me is get that belt on Conor as quickly as you can because that's where the money is. And nobody's going to turn down fights with Conor. Everybody's going to want to fight him because it's a big payday. So I think if you get him on a pay-per-view, get him a fight for the title against any one of those contenders, and you're laughing. And then, everyone has to step up. They've got to fight each other to be the next contender in line.
Exactly.
It plays nicely into Conor's narrative that he had for this year to have the season. But it's gonna take a commitment from Conor. I think he's gonna have to put the boxing and all that palaver aside, commit to fighting for and defending this belt for the next, say, 12 months or so until he loses it, I guess.
And one, you put the belt back on him, of all them things that you've said there, the payday and different things, but it's also just coincidental. Would like to think, as we're easing out of COVID, guess what? Fans are back, and now Conor is back on his rightful throne, and suddenly pay-per-view numbers are up. Fans are buying merchandise. Las Vegas rolls on. Abu Dhabi will probably roll on with fans, and suddenly it's like, wow. No,
it's an incredible time for the UFC and for that lightweight division. And you know what? Nobody wanted to see Khabib retire, but least of all the UFC because it's a huge gauge for that, that Middle Eastern market over the European market. But they've presented the UFC with a conveyor belt of contenders here who can now more likely win the belt now that Khabib's gone.
They would never do it, but I would actually want to see like a Bellator Grand Prix style. But Bellator will always say, hang on, the UFC have nicked our idea here. But what a story to play out for over 2021. The whole lightweight Grand Prix where it's, your fights in January, April, and you keep, and you get that traction of someone will be crowned at the end of 2021. Or the UFC just see it and go, well, we'd rather have a champion as early as possible, probably Conor, and we'll just milk everyone for Conor.
They'll effectively play out the Grand Prix style thing without actually putting a label on it. I wouldn't be surprised if when they put Conor versus someone for the title in, say, January, that the co-main event is two other lightweight contenders. For me, I would like to see Conor Gaethje undercard. The co-main being Poirier and Michael Chandler. That's what I'd like to see, and then the rest play out over the year. But that for me, that's the way to go.
Yeah, absolutely.
It leads us on nice as opposed to the event of the weekend, UFC 254, which was another absolute cracker. Although it did mean that we had to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning over here in Melbourne. But worth every hour of lost sleep, I think. I guess we touch on the main event first. It leads nicely on from what we've just been talking about. Khabib versus Gaethje. Incredible scenes. Not an incredible fight, but incredible scenes, and an incredible performance from Khabib. I'll come to you first on it. What did you think of everything that played out?
Wow, it was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. It had everything. The performance, the emotion. What a performance. Do you remember when fans used to say, if only Khabib had a stand-up game? Do you remember when people used to say that all the time?
Only you could,
That's the only way you could get him. And I think, and you watch that performance and you go, can you tell me where there's holes in this game? Because his striking was better than Justin Gaethje's striking. He was out striking Justin Gaethje. And it was that jab of Khabib that was just causing Gaethje so many problems. Every time it landed, Gaethje had to reset and kind of go again. And I know DC always talks about it. He always claims that he taught him the jab.
He would.
But I just saw a lot of that at play. And obviously, then we get to the second round, obviously triangle choke and got the job done. And I know we mentioned it may have been a late stoppage from the referee, but I forgive him because he was probably just in awe of that performance, I would say. He was probably in a daydream of saying, am I actually witnessing this right now? And for me, the strike up, that striking battle and that performance was up there, in my opinion, with the best Conor versus Eddie Alvarez type performance. I'm talking that level of like, wow, what a fighter. And the most impressive thing is the fact that he decided to go to what's come out this week, and he decided to go to a triangle choke rather than an armbar because he didn't want to break his arm in front of his parents who were sat there front row. just shows
What a
the
guy.
testament of a good-natured killer. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a weird combination to have, isn't
I
it?
know. But for me, like I say, it was quite emotional, and I believe we won't see him again. I believe he is a man of his word. He's a guy not motivated by money. He was just a guy that wanted to make his mum and dad proud, and he has done. And he obviously doesn't feel right with his father not being by his side. And it's time to hang them up. That's what he feels, and you've got to respect that. And all I have to say is thank you for the memories, Khabib, really, because. Yeah. And I think people will appreciate him even more now that he's gone out of the sport. He retires as the GOAT. Nobody's cracked the code, in my opinion. Yes, I said initially the GSP fight would have been amazing. And if he would have beat GSP, then there is no debate. The GOAT debate ends. Right. It just ends. If you beat GSP, it ends. There's no other comparison. But I feel as though he's the GOAT now. And it felt right to finish in Abu Dhabi. Matt, how did you feel?
Oh man, yeah, it was super emotional, and I didn't see it coming either. I remember we were watching it, and we were kind of messaging at the same time, and as he kind of got up off the floor at the end of the performance, he had like a bit of an emotional outburst. I messaged you because I could see him flapping with his gloves, and I was like, gloves, he's taking his gloves off, and you just knew what was coming then. It was a special moment, I think, and I'm glad that I'm glad that he's done it, because it shows that he's very principled, isn't he? And he's all about the kind of family and community and honor, and he doesn't fight for the money, he doesn't fight for the fame, which a lot of people do. He fought there for his father and for his community, and I think now in his retirement, he goes on, he takes his father's place, at the forefront of that community. He'll go on and lead and be a coach and kind of bring through that next wave of Dagestani fighters, of which there's already a heap of killers there. Islam Makhachev, a couple of other Nurmagomedovs, Usman Saeed, I think his name is. A couple of other ones coming through there from that region, which they're all dangerous, but they need that leader there to kind of connect them to the American market with AKA, but also just to be a part of that community back home as well. So I'm fascinated to see what his next moves are. In terms of the fight itself, I think for me, what really stood out was the pressure he was able to put on Justin Gaethje. I've never seen Gaethje gas that quickly. First round, he was sat on his stool in the corner, and you could see how the cutmen and stuff were like wiping his face, and he was like pulling away because he was trying to get a breath in. He just didn't give Gaethje a second to breathe, and he causes that problem with everyone where you don't know what you're constantly reacting to what Khabib's doing, because Khabib was using his striking, he was throwing. So you're trying to defend the attacks whilst also constantly being aware that he could take you down at any moment as well. And for that reason, you just found that Gaethje was throwing these wild overhands. He couldn't get going, he couldn't get set.
No.
He just caused him so many problems. And then the finish, like you say, was absolutely beautiful. The transition from the armbar into the triangle choke, and it was tight. Like Gaethje was asleep within seconds. Job done for Khabib. It was seamless, and it does lead us to now that kind of GOAT conversation. I think the mark against Khabib's name in the GOAT conversation is that he's not done it at multiple weight classes. That's the one thing that I'd say he was missing. He's got every other facet there in terms of domination. Hasn't held the belt for that long, and hasn't fought the who's who, I guess, of that division. He's not been like a legend killer or anything like that. Although he's got good wins against, Khabib and Poirier and things like that. But he's got to be up there just in terms of the domination that he's had, the way that he's fought. He's probably lost a round in his career, which is arguable as well. He's not been knocked down. He's not really taken much damage. It's a debate to be had, isn't it? Which we'll probably have as time goes on as well.
Yeah, and exactly what you said there about losing the round. For me, he's only lost one round, and that is a very close round. Could have gone either way. Yeah. Every other round he's ever had, it's probably closer to being a 10-8 than a 10-9. Yeah. We're talking that. Every single round he's ever done has either been a 10-8 or he's just lost one round. Never mind losing a fight, just that one. And you said earlier, taking his father's place and that story and that family, that family loyalty. And this is why as a child I watched The Lion King every day, because it's the same story. Simba now takes Mufasa's place in the circle of life.
Analogy. There we go. Are you convinced now that that's it, that the door's closed? You won't see Khabib in the octagon again?
No, I firmly believe that he's done, and I just don't think he's that. Someone like a Cejudo is, but I just don't think Khabib's.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. I was going to say, we've seen other people retire, Cejudo, Conor, multiple times, and the door's always open, and the door's open for Khabib. He could let this division play out. I think he'd only probably come back for super fights, i.e. GSP, but there's a time limit on that. GSP's older now.
Yeah,
it seems unlikely to me that he will come back, because why? Unless somebody really gets under his skin, which Conor could. I don't see why he would come back now. I think it's so nice. And we'll touch on this later when we talk about Anderson Silva, but it's so nice and it's so rare for people to go out on top unblemished. It doesn't ever happen. No. And it's in this day and age where, there's big money involved and, there's social media rants and you can get hook, line and sinker. You can get real back in, can't you? And I hope that he's got the kind of mental fortitude not to. I hope he stays retired. Yeah. And his legacy remains intact. I don't want to see him come back later on for a dangerous fight when he's been out the ring, out the octagon for a while, and start to tarnish that legacy. So I hope we're right in thinking that this is it for Khabib.
Yeah.
Elsewhere on the card, the co-main was also awesome. Especially for us being big Rob Whittaker fans. It was great to see him, recapture that form that we've seen in the past. And recapture the form from his last performance against Darren Till as well. He came in, the whole build-up fight week, he's in a different place, isn't he, than when we saw him in the Adesanya fight a couple of years ago, last year. Yeah. He's much more relaxed. He's comfortable with the media. He's not that intense kind of. When I remember in the build-up to the Izzy fight, that just the intensity around him, he just didn't look, and no part of this did he look like he was enjoying. Whereas now he seems like he's enjoying it again.
But he smiled back.
Yeah, he smiles back. He wants to be there, and that's the Rob Whittaker that is super dangerous. What did you make of the fight in his performance?
I think it was one of the best Whittakers we have seen.
Yeah,
an excellent game plan. Excellent game plan. He stopped Cannonier from doing anything other than those really hard leg kicks that we was not grimacing about. But he fought a very clever fight to me. And I think anytime there was that sense of danger, he would take him down or just try and nullify Cannonier. And it was very much like a champion performance where I've got to just win the fight and I've got to have the game plan. And I've got to get the win, and the former champion deserves that respect. And it clearly shows to me that there is levels to this game. And Whittaker was just a level above of Cannonier, and he couldn't do anything. So, like you say, was relaxed, was in the right frame of mind. So, hey, bring on that Bobby and Izzy rematch, and please let it be Melbourne again, because I want to be there.
I know. Yeah, man, I was super impressed with him. That the way he can move in and out of that jab so quickly. It's so dangerous for anyone because the distance he can cover in a split second is unreal. I was really impressed with him. And now you say what's going to happen next with him is really interesting because he isn't chasing that title again. I actually don't think he's that bothered about the title at all. Yeah. That's what happened to him last time. It brought the extra pressure on and he didn't seem to enjoy it at all. I think he more likely now will just see what happens and will play out the division, let the fights come to him. He'll accept whatever he's thrown at him, I think. I don't think he's too bothered about it being Izzy. As much as we would love it to be Adesanya. Yeah. I'm not so sure that it will be because I think Adesanya will look for another challenge.
Yeah.
But I think the UFC are going to want to put Whittaker back in there because it builds another big Australia card or New Zealand card.
Yeah.
The only spanner I think I can see in the works is if Darren Till has a big performance against Hermanson.
Yeah.
That he might steal that from Whittaker just because him and Izzy haven't fought before.
Yeah.
But in terms of what Whittaker does next, the world is oyster, really. I think he can fight anyone in that middleweight division, and I would back him. It'll be interesting to see how he goes with Izzy again because Izzy's just a different prospect, isn't he? He's a different level. But what I would guarantee is that it'll be a much more competitive fight than we had last time.
Yeah.
Which is awesome. This much more relaxed Izzy this more relaxed Whittaker is a much more dangerous opponent for anyone. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I don't know what's next with Cannonier. I think he slips down the rankings a bit now. You know, he's a bit old. I think this was his run. It's kind of come to an end now. I don't know if he'll challenge again. I'm not so sure we'll even see him again. I don't know. I don't know what's out there for him really. Within this division, I think the only way is down for him now for a little while. So, but you know, he's a good professional, and like they've said all week, he's a resilient guy that is in good shape. So he could still feature, but I don't think he offered too much for that title picture really. So
yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, does he fight? Would he fight someone? Does he get a big fight? Could he even get a fight against? I don't know whether they fought, but like a Paulo Costa or.
Yeah, they have they fought? I think they fought. I think they have fought. But yeah, it's going to be someone like that. You're going to be maybe a Chimaev if he comes back to middleweight.
Because it's kind of like two fighters, Costa and Cannonier, is kind of you've stepped up and it's not worked, and it's kind of like, well, or Romero's probably, I don't know.
There's fights there for him. I just think he's going to work his way down the list, doesn't he? He's going to go down before he comes back up, I think. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see where we go with that one.
Yeah.
Anywhere else? Anything else on that card that really kind of took your attention? What were your highlights?
I mean, I've got to mention it. I was obviously very critical of Tuivasa. I did mention it was a toilet break, so it was probably a little bit better than that. But the one thing I didn't realise is that he actually finished his opponent on 4 minutes 59 seconds, which I didn't realise. Yeah. So he got the job done against Struve. We broke that down in the last show with Adam of what kind of that would play out. Tuivasa did what we thought he can do. If he lands, finishes Struve, impressive victory, and he needed to get back in the win column, Tuivasa. And certainly if they go to that rematch with Bobby and Izzy, then let's get him on that card as well. And hey, hopefully it's our boy Aspinall that if he gets through Spivak, calls him out. Who knows?
Yeah, that'd be a great fight. Yeah, I was impressed with Tuivasa actually. I wasn't surprised. He did exactly what I thought he was going to do in terms of his game plan. Unfortunately for Struve, he wasn't able to offer any type of resistance really. Yeah. It's the weirdest thing ever when he's literally the tallest guy in the UFC with the biggest reach, and he doesn't
use it
at all. No. You think he should have caused a lot of problems for Tuivasa, but didn't. Tuivasa was able to pressure him, back him up against the fence, and just land those bombs. So I was really impressed with him. I think, Tuivasa now, I'd like to see him continue to take his training seriously like he seems to have been doing. Great for him to get back out to AKA in the States, but obviously with COVID and stuff, I don't think that's going to be possible for a little while. If he wants to move up in these rankings, they're going to have to challenge him against some wrestler again. Because it's his Achilles heel, isn't it? He's got no answer to that kind of ground game.
Yeah.
If you throw him in there with Aspinall, you think he would just grapple with him because it's a surefire way to win at the minute. So I think he needs to be tested again against some form of grappler if he wants to start climbing that division. Because eventually, especially in the heavyweights, you're going to come up against people who can wrestle. And every time he's going to get to a certain level and then get stuck, what's the point? He's just going to be in a bit of a prize fighter where he just fights the kind of up and comers in the division, cashes some checks, and that's it. If he wants to have a real go, he needs to test himself, I think, in that range. But
I agree.
We'll see. And I'm assuming we'll see him again on the next kind of Australia, New Zealand card in the next year.
Wherever. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Other things that other ones that jumped out on this card. The Casey Kenny and Nathaniel Wood I was impressed with. Good performance from both of them, really. I actually, obviously, Kenny got the decision. I actually had it for Wood.
I had it for Wood.
But I wasn't mad at it. It could have gone either way. I think what it does, just that fight, it was catch weight, last minute kind of replacement onto the card. Yeah. So for both of them, I think it's kind of a little win, It was a great fight. I think they might have got fight of the night. So yeah, no harm for either of them there. They'll both go on and get another fight, probably a quick turnaround, I suppose. But I'd like to see Wood have a proper camp, a proper weight cut, and get a decent opponent again as he climbs his way back up. And Kenny's continuing his win streak, so good on them. Yeah. And that, I guess, it leads us on to this weekend. It's not a card filled with stellar names, but it is an exciting card. It's got potential, I think, to be a cracker. So
I think as a brief overview, I think every single one of these fights can go either way. And I think from a betting point of view, for us too, because we like a UFC multi, it is going to be an absolute nightmare.
Yeah.
I think.
Keep your money this weekend. I'll put it on Grant's multi of the week in the Premier League, but
yeah, maybe
this fight card. I think if you're putting any money anywhere.
Yeah.
Main event is Anderson Silva and Uriah Hall. It's got a bit of a sad narrative, really. It's Anderson Silva's retirement fight, or so he says. You know, it seems to be the last fight on his contract. I don't imagine he's going to get another one unless he does something absolutely mad, spectacular. I don't know. It's a shame on one hand because he doesn't get to see it out in Brazil, you know, and he doesn't get the fans there. Yeah. There's also a bit of a narrative around Uriah Hall as well. I think when Uriah Hall was coming up, he was kind of classed as a next Anderson Silva, wasn't he, at one point many moons ago? And then now they're going to face off for Silva's retirement fight. Have you any thoughts about the fight? How do you think this one will go?
It's a really tough one. I think, and obviously, like you say, that narrative with Hall. So he was supposed to fight Yoel Romero in August, and that was obviously rescheduled and gave him Silva. I think it's a good matchup. Like you say, it's Silva's at the end of his career, so it's kind of, see how you go against putting a great name on your resume. Because I feel as though Hall, although he's won his last two, the reason why it makes sense for Hall is that anybody of note he's ever fought, he's got beat to.
Yeah.
And I think this is a fantastic name on it. So I mentioned Paulo Costa, Brunson, Mousasi, Whitaker. So I think that makes sense from that point of view. Like you say, Silva has always talked about the GOAT. And I think the sad thing is it's a potential retirement and no fans are there to sort of see it. And I would say that a lot of the current UFC fans and a lot of that more hardcore fans got into the sport because of Anderson Silva.
Yeah.
He was the trailblazer. He was the doing things you'd never seen before. He was the Israel Adesanya that you go, wow, this guy is unbelievable. He's hitting you from all different angles and he's just simply amazing. And Silva, you know, he's won one of his last 8, I think. He's obviously never been the same since that horrific leg break, but he was the man. He was the go-to man of that, the innovation side of it. Yeah. So in a summary, I think that Hall will grind it out and get the decision. And I think it's just going to be a bit of a stand-up battle. I think Silva will do his, keep moving and keep his hands behind his back and try and do something.
Yeah.
He does a lot of this stuff. And but yeah, I think Hall will just grind him out. It'll be a stand-up battle. Silva will probably want him to come to the floor a little bit, and I can see Hall catching him with something. Silva goes down, and then he's kind of sat there going, "Come on," and Hall won't play that game because he just knows what he's like.
Absolutely not, mate.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it'll be a stand-up battle, and Hall grinds it out and gets the decision. What about yourself? How do you see it?
I tend to agree. I think Uriah Hall's got a lot more to gain from this than Silva does, unfortunately. Even though it's Silva's last fight, he's not going to get the adulation of the fans. It's going to be hard for him to get up for it, From what I hear as well, Uriah Hall's got a new kind of team now. He's training at that Fortis MMA.
Yeah.
So he's trying to rebuild. He's trying to go for one last kind of resurgence in the division. And this is, like you say, it's a chance for him to get a big name on his resume. And it's, in all honesty, a fight that he probably should be winning, even though it's Anderson Silva.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for Silva, his career's kind of fizzled out. His last 5 fights, he's had Bisping, Cormier defeats. He beat Derek Brunson, but Brunson at that point was going through an iffy patch as well. And then he's got defeats to Adesanya and Cannonier there. And it just feels like it's fizzling out a little bit. And it feels like a bit of it's a time to say goodbye, but there's no fans there, and it's just not going to be the same. And I feel like I'm doing a disservice because it could be a great fight, we should be excited to see Anderson Silva because, like you say, he's one of the greats of all time. But it's just sad that it's happening this way, especially again when you compare it to how Khabib decided to go out, how GSP went out, how Cormier went out, with a good performance, even though he didn't get the win. It's just a bit sad for him. Yeah. Where does he sit for you in that kind of GOAT status, GOAT ranking? It's tough, isn't it? Because one thing I'll caveat is that he's had PED, discrepancies on his record in the past, and that really affects how some people see the GOAT status, if you like.
I think he's not nowhere near it. Well, no, not nowhere near it, but I think you compare him to a GSP, a Jones, who again you can argue with the whole.
Yep.
He's had those discrepancies
on the record there.
Jones, I'd say you've got Khabib there. There's GSP, Jones, and then the way the achievements like a Conor McGregor's going, and even in Israel Adesanya. When you look at some of these current fighters at the Henry Cejudo at the end of their careers, I think Anderson Silva will be lucky to still be in that GOAT conversation after a lot of this current crop has got to 70 years of age or however old he is. You know what I mean? So I don't think he's there for me. But I will say, similar to a Ronda Rousey, trailblazer and paved the way. The reason why UFC is what it is today, with the innovation, the Brazilian jiu-jitsu and the training and the spectacle and the highlight reel, all comes from Anderson Silva. So Hall of Famer without doubt, and the UFC owe him a lot. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. You could do a podcast episode in itself. Maybe we will about the GOAT status, because it is an interesting conversation. Yeah. But yeah, it's a funny one, because if you ask a lot of current UFC fighters who inspired them, who did they aspire to be, a lot of them are going to say Anderson Silva, as if and the women's divisions would say Ronda Rousey. But it was almost like they had to have this time in order to move the sport on. But now they've just been kind of overtaken in terms of what people have done and what they've gone on to achieve. It's kind of eclipsed what they did. And then for Silva having the PED infraction on his record, it does sour his reputation a little bit. So he's always thereabouts in that conversation. But yeah, as time goes on, he's going to slip out of the reckoning, I would say. Yeah. Elsewhere on the card, anything else kind of jumping out to you? Yeah, Bryce Mitchell and Andre Feely jumps out. Yeah, cool man. Yeah, I love Bryce. He's a young kid, and I believe he can be a star. I think he can be a real star in the UFC. From Arkansas, he loves to fight. He can talk a bit too, and he's most recently popping up in a few sort of local car adverts. And if you've not seen them, I'd say tune in. And he reminds me a lot of Cowboy Cerrone, and I think that's kind of the person he will become, in the sense where all UFC fans know what he brings, and he's that, I'll take the fight, and I think they will fall in love with him very quickly. So I hope he gets the win. He's very dangerous on the ground as well. However, it's a step up in competition. It is worth noting that Andre Feely probably has one of the best nicknames in the UFC, 100%. Andre Touchy Feely. So Feely is dangerous on his feet, and he's got some knockout power. So I've got a feeling that Bryce will take him down, and I predict that Bryce will get the win via submission in this one. How do you see it? Yeah, totally agree. We know how dangerous and also how resilient that Andre Feely is. He's very tough. He's hard to take out there. He's been in some wars. I think Bryce Mitchell will know this, and I think he'll want it to go to the ground as soon as he can, because that's where he's probably got the biggest advantage. Yeah. Both good prospects, and in that they're kind of just below the melee, I'd say, in that featherweight division. So one of these, the winner here, can really try and break into that, that top 10, and start to make a charge for the top 5 pretty soon. So interesting to see how this one goes. But I agree with you there. I think this could be a submission finish for Bryce Mitchell. Elsewhere on the card, I guess the other one for me was Kevin Holland. He's back in the Apex. I'm sure he's got his own room there now. He spent half of the bloody summer there. But it's great. He's turning around, and he's the type of guy that Dana absolutely loves, because he just turns up and fights every other weekend if he could. He's fighting Muradov, I think his name is. Muradov. Mahmoud Muradov, I think, something like that. Excuse my pronunciations. He said he's had 2 fights in the UFC, so a relative newcomer. But obviously, I think it's going to be a striking match. These two are going to want to keep it on the feet. Kevin Holland's been super active, and you don't know how much of an effect that has. Sometimes it's good to be in there every other week, but then other times, you sometimes need to give yourself a rest. He was in a good fight there with Darren Stewart not too long ago. So I hope he's not overdoing it. But I think Dana's serving him up
challenges that I think he can overcome. And I think Kevin Holland comes out of this one with another win, I would say.
Yeah,
What about
completely
yourself?
agree.
Yeah, you think?
Completely agree. I think Kevin Holland, like you say, with the Apex, I think they'll start calling it the Kevin Holland Arena in years to come.
Yeah.
But I think the reason why I'm going with Kevin Holland is because the way he was with the Darren Stewart decision. He wanted to prove a point, and he wanted to run that back with Darren Stewart. And he wants to prove a point to say, I have got the knockout power. I want to put on a good finish for Dana, and I want to get those fights. And he's actually stepped in because Muradov should have been fighting Jotko.
Right.
And so Kevin Holland's come in as a late replacement for that. And I think, we saw him in, well, ever since this podcast started, it seems to be we talk about Kevin Holland every 3 weeks or something like that. So I think we saw him in May, August and September. So again, he's fighting, and they both pack a punch, and I think someone is going to get knocked out, and I think it'll be Holland. He knows Dana's watching, and he'll say, "Here's what I can do. Let's get me Darren Stewart again, and I'll do the same to him." So I'm going to go Holland for the highlight reel knockout.
Awesome. Elsewhere on the card, the last one for me that really struck out on this one was Alex Hernandez with team fight again. Interesting character, like when he fought, his last loss was against Cowboy. I think it was probably 3 fights ago for him, and he really didn't come out well from that fight. He was a bit of a douchebag in the build up, and especially when you're doing it to a guy that everybody loves as well. And it doesn't go down well, and then he got kind of humbled, didn't he, by Cowboy? He's since built himself back up. He's got 2 good wins. He's beat Ronaldo and Drew Dober. So, good names, and he is a good, exciting prospect. I think he just needed to be taken down a peg or 2, didn't he? It kind of happened too soon for him. So I'm interested to see how he now progresses and how he's going to step up, and if he can kind of continue to rebuild that career and put a little run together.
Yeah, no, I think the same. I think he will grind out a decision on this one, although I am a fan of Chris Gruetzemacher because I remember watching him in the McGregor and Faber Ultimate Fighter. So he actually made his debut on the finale. So it was Ryan Hall and Artem Lobov, which was the finale. But they actually made Chris Gruetzemacher a fight, and he fought on the prelims. So he actually also made his UFC debut on that finale card. So I really like him, and I think he's got decent hands. I think his last fight was a TKO win against Joel Lozon, which was performance of the night, I think. And similar to Brian Ortega, he does a bit for charity. So he was probably one of the first. He had loads of long hair, and he actually donated it to children with cancer. So really good guy. I think that was back in like 2017. So I am a big fan of Chris. I've seen him a little bit on The Ultimate Fighter, but like you say, that step up of competition that Hernandez has had and the with victories he's had, I've got to lean towards him to take a decision.
Awesome. That kind of wraps up that card. I think in terms of MMA, the only other thing I wanted to kind of run by you was the Leon Edwards situation. We speak about, again, it feels like every other week we're speaking about Leon Edwards and why he hasn't got a fight. Now he does have a fight, but it didn't come easy, did it? I think while the UFC card over the weekend was kind of playing out, there was lots of stuff in the media about what happened to Leon Edwards. And I'm guessing what had happened is he had turned down another fight. The UFC got a bit sick of it. They threatened to strip his ranking, or they did strip his ranking. And the next thing, he's agreed to fight Chimaev, which is it's the bum deal. Nobody wanted to fight Chimaev. For Leon Edwards, it's a big challenge, but it's something he should be overcoming. If he wants to be in the title picture, he's going to have to beat Chimaev at some point. And I sympathize with both parties on this one, because the UFC have been trying to get Leon Edwards a fight. No one can deny that. Yes, they've been last minute. Yes, they might have been below his ranking in terms of they didn't really do much to progress him. He wanted that title shot. But if it wasn't happening, and Leon Edwards, you've got to fight, unfortunately. You can't just sit on the fence, especially when you're not as big a name and you're not as big a draw as Leon Edwards is. Despite his skills, despite his high ranking, he isn't a big household name.
I agree.
On the other hand, for Leon Edwards, he was in that number 3 position. He's on an 8-fight win streak. His only loss is against the champion Usman. So, you know, he was in line for that title shot. And the only, I guess, he's only got something to lose, really. He's trying to play it smart. He's trying to hold out to get the title shot. If he fights anybody else below his ranking, you know, it's a high risk for not very much reward for him. So I do sympathize with him in that sense. But he got to the point where, dude, you're just gonna have to fight. And now, because he's turned down subsequent fights, he's been dealt the bum card, I believe, with Chimaev. It takes place 19th of December, I think, in Apex. How do you think that's going to go? How do you think Leon goes to Chimaev?
Nice Christmas present, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Merry Christmas, Leon.
Chimaev pops out the box. I think he should get the job done, like you say, if he wants to be in the title picture. And Dane, you know, to sum it up, Dane has played him hook, line and sinker, because it's kind of, Leon, nobody cares about you, mate, and other than a couple of select.
I care about you, Leon.
Yeah.
I've been banging you.
Other than a select UK audience, which we are of.
Yeah.
They're the only people that care about him, because Dana looks at it and goes, well, you don't talk, you don't call anybody out, you just sit there. You want the golden goose, you want Usman again. It's like, we've got Kobe, we've got Masvidal, we've got Burns. People are tuning in there for Usman. So, mate, we'll give you Wonder Boy, we'll give you good fights. So, you know what, we're just going to strip you. And now he kicks off and then goes, all right, well, the ultimatum is you can play and you can go to Bellator, or you fight my little adopted Russian son here, and it's called Chimaev. So there's no better fight for Edwards to announce himself onto the stage that he already thinks he's on.
Yeah,
so
you're absolutely right.
He has to do it, and he has to go through him. Simple as that.
He's got to take this fight. He's got to win this fight. And you know what? He doesn't even have to have a good performance. He just has to win. Just win. But what is important, as soon as he wins, he's got to rock that microphone. He needs the narrative. He needs to get on the microphone and fucking call everybody out, call Dana out, give everyone shit for not kind of backing him, not believing him, and call for the title shot. He's been fed this monster that's coming up now. And if Dana thinks that he's the most dangerous fight, and that basically if Chimaev beats Leon Edwards, which I don't think he will, if he does, he'll be in a title shot next. So Leon Edwards needs to get on the mic and call for it and say, listen, you served me up to this guy who would have got a title shot. Now I want my title shot as soon as I get this win. And that's what he needs to do. And
absolutely,
please let him, someone be in his ear and remind him to get on the microphone if he wins, because he needs a narrative. That division is full of narratives with Kobe, Masvidal, Usman, Woodley's also on the mic. You know, these people will get themselves fights, and he'll get left behind again if he doesn't do it. So we all need to send him tweets before the fight and just, gently remind him.
I agree.
Happy days. Well, anyway, good luck to Leon Edwards. I hope he comes through it, because he deserves the title shot. He does deserve it, and I hope he comes through it.
Yeah.
All right, that sums us up for MMA. We'll move swiftly on to the AFL. We had the grand final on Saturday night, which was awesome. We watched that together. Really great game. It wasn't the fairy tale ending for Gary Ablett that we wanted. It just early on, he took the knock on his shoulder, and for me, it felt like a bit of a polite reminder, I suppose, that his body can't do this anymore, and it's the right decision to be hanging up his boots. But he stayed in the game, and he was able to contribute. There was a few really nice little handballs and passes, and he did contribute to Geelong's game. It's just a shame that he didn't get to have the performance he wanted on his way out. Yeah. How did you think he went?
Yeah, I thought he did as well as he could. As I said, the final got a bit, the first 7 minutes to 8 minutes was a bit slow, and then it started to kick in. Like you say, Gary Ablett broke his shoulder in the first 5 minutes, what Matt's referring to as an injury. And it reminded me of, he breaks his shoulder in the opening 5 minutes and carries on and wants to be part of the team and still involved in the final. I mean, that sounds very something to what Neymar would do, wouldn't it?
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, the finals itself, Richmond obviously won 81-50, came from about 16 points down, I think, at half time or whatever that was. Dusty Martin, what a player. 3 grand finals, 3 Norm Smith medals, which is the best on ground, like man of the match, the ultimate big game player. He's the only ever one to get 3 of them. And he's 29. He's still probably got at least another 3 years at least in him. And with this Richmond side, they aren't showing any signs of slowing down. So Dusty, can become the GOAT.
Yeah, without a doubt. Richmond played it perfectly. When you get to these big games, the Richmond's plan is get the ball to Dusty as often as you can, put him in those positions because he's a big game player and he punishes the opposition. And that's exactly what they did. They just got the ball to him constantly throughout that second half. And, the momentum just pulled away from Geelong, really. It was a great performance, a great final performance from Richmond. I was really impressed.
Yeah.
And I think we should all just note how well I think the AFL have done. They took a bit of criticism at the start of it, but they've played this season out. They've made modifications. They went to a hub system. They shortened the season slightly, but they've played a full season of football through a pandemic here. They got it done, and it was really entertaining. We've been in lockdown the entire time.
Yeah.
Without the AFL, God, we'd have all been going mad, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
They've put on these spectacles. And for me, it's been a great season. I've really enjoyed it. So from me to the AFL, thank you very much, because I think it's been absolutely cracking. And I'm already looking forward to next season as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Saints kick on. You never know.
That's it. And Essendon, we might get to the top. We might kick on and get the top 10 this year.
You can dream, mate. I think with the good news, it's Melbourne's. We're coming out of lockdown now. It's been a good news week, and that kind of kicked off with Storm on Sunday night. I know you tuned in and you were really keen to see the Storm win the NRL grand final. How do you think the game went? Any kind of anything to add to that?
Yeah, it was a good game, and as I say, for those listeners that know me very well and say, "What, Grant's watching rugby league?" Yes, I tuned into my first rugby league game of the season, the grand final. Like you say, started that week of positivity. Storm as a club have only actually been around for 23 years, and this was their 10th final in that period. 6-time winners and 4-time runners-up, but they were stripped twice of wins because of a salary cap scandal, I believe. So officially, it's only 4 wins. But yeah, well done to them. It was a fantastic game. They beat a Penrith side who everyone said are the best in the comp. I think they finished on top of the ladder. They won 17 games on the bounce. But just like Richmond in the grand final, they know how to win a final and get it done. So I see a lot of similarities with both teams.
Yeah.
And Cameron Smith very much like a Dusty Martin. And wow. Fair play to Melbourne, and thank you for the positivity and kick-starting the week for us.
Yeah, happy days. And it's also worth noting as well, like I just said, for the AFL, the NRL have also played a full season through the midst of a pandemic. They got it done. They made it work. I'm sure it wasn't ideal circumstances.
And Melbourne got it done with no home games.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they've been away throughout the season.
In the bubble.
And bubble, whatever you call it. So yeah, hats off to these teams. It's not easy to do, and I'm sure it's not cost effective. It's not ideal for the players, the families. It's pretty tough. But again, as sports fans, they've kept us entertained throughout this period. So
exactly. And moving swiftly on, obviously, to the Premier League now. I don't know where to start, but it seems to be, Matt, another Liverpool game, and yet again, VAR is the talking point. What happened?
It's a shame, isn't it, that this is the first thing that we have to talk about, but we got diddled again. Luckily, this one didn't cost us any points, but it was another one of those where you're staring at the TV, seeing, am I seeing the same thing that the ref and the VAR assistants are seeing? I found it hard to accept or to get my head around the fact that a penalty was given that he won the ball and it wasn't in the box. So, I was a bit perplexed by it, to be honest with you. It was funny because the challenge comes in from, with Fabinho's back to goal. Usually you see those challenges going towards goal and it's a bit more of an obvious, obvious foul, I would say. But this is going away and you clearly see the ball move away from goal. It's on VAR, for me, when you look at the replay again, I just can't see how it's in the box. I don't see how you mark that down as a penalty. So I don't want to harp on it too much, but it's 2 in 2 weeks now that you feel we're just being a bit diddled. And you could really see straight after that decision had taken place, the Liverpool players, the defenders especially, the heads were gone a bit, and you're just a bit like, what have we got to do here?
Yeah.
And it's tarnishing the game a bit because it doesn't give players the same kind of freedom to do what they know is right and to play their game, because they're constantly worried about being caught out or being diddled by the video refs. Some of these rules need clarifying. I think they need to get onto it pretty quick. But I don't. What did you think of the decision? Am I seeing this through Liverpool tainted glasses, or was it also a bit of a mad one for a United fan looking at it inside?
No, I didn't think it was a penalty in the first place when it happened, and then I looked at it in VAR, and I still don't know why the penalty was given. And like you say, I am a Man United fan, and I can't stand Liverpool, but I've got to call it as I see it, and I'm honest in that way. And it wasn't a penalty. And part of me, yes, I do have Trent in my fantasy football team, so maybe I am a little bit biased there because it should have been a clean sheet. But anyway, but yeah, I don't think it was a penalty at all, and obviously got the win, got the 3 points, and you move on to the next one, which was this morning for us. Liverpool in the Champions League was how did that one go?
You know what? It was a similar style performance where we're in that rhythm again now, which we had for portions of last year, where the football's not super entertaining, but we're there to get a job done, and we get the 3 points. I'd say we did the same against Sheffield United. We ground out the result. We got the win. Same this morning. I got up early here to watch the game. It was a changed side. It was the first time for a while. I think it might even be in all of Klopp's kind of tenure in the Champions League that we've not started the front three as we know it, the normal front three.
Yeah.
It was hard to get the rhythm, I think. He started there with Shaqiri, Minamino, and Jota up front. So it's a bit of a different side, and they're not firing on all cylinders. They're still getting used to playing this new formation and this new style of play. So it's to be, it's understandable that it's not, not clicking into gear. I felt for them a little bit. They weren't getting the service again from the midfield. I think they were kind of preoccupied with grinding out the game. And to be fair to Midtjylland, they did try and come at us. They did have a bit of a go. But again, we got it done in the end. I think for me, the highlights, Jota played really well, and he's really played himself into contention for what you would see as a first team place. He's contributed in the game, and he's scoring every time he plays as well, which is, super important, especially when you've got players there like Firmino, who we've spoken about over the last couple of weeks. He's having a tough run of form, really. And he missed a sitter towards the end of the game today again when he came on. Jota's knocking on the door there for his place, and he's giving Klopp something to think about. But it's a great addition as well. We are rotating these sides from playing midweek to playing the Premier League games of the weekend. We are able to rotate, and Jota can kind of jump in and out of either of those teams, I think. The other big positive for me was Shaqiri. Second half especially, played really well. He's got a great touch, and he's got a great eye as well. He plays some beautiful balls through, and he worked, I thought, really well on that right-hand side with Salah when he came on with Trent. Yeah. It's another good addition to having that extra strength and depth. And, we didn't get to see much of him at all last year, and you can't say we missed him because we won the league, but he's going to be a valuable addition, I think, as we start to rotate players in.
And his hips don't lie.
Hips do not.
Oh, sorry, you said Shaqiri. Oh, sorry. Okay, I was thinking of somebody else.
You've thrown me off with that now.
Well, the biggest talking point, Fabinho going down with an injury. We look at a preview for the weekend. Can West Ham exploit your centre backs here? What's the preview?
We're going to have to contend with Antonio, aren't we? He's playing really well, and he's going to cause us problems there. I don't know what the injury is. I've not had time to kind of see it. I'm assuming we'll only find out later on kind of this evening here in Australia. What it looked to me either like a calf or a hamstring. He pulled up short, kind of running back towards goal. Went off. I'm hoping he's taking him off. He was just a bit sore, and it was a bit of a precaution. For me, it didn't look good. I sent you the picture after the game, of Henderson's face when he was on the floor. So whether Fabinho said something there to the physio as it's going on. Henderson kind of got his head in his hands. It's not good, especially with West Ham, who are looking dangerous, with Man City on the horizon as well. Fabinho is really important to us, firstly in that number 6 role, protecting the back four, but with our current kind of situation without Van Dijk, to be able to slip into the back four as well is really important. He'll be a big loss, and it'll put extra pressure on, I think, the likes of Matip and Gomez to, one, stay fit, but also to continue the performances week in, week out. Next down the pecking order, we've got that Reece Williams, who played tonight. But you wouldn't fancy putting him in there against Man City, would you? No. So it's a bit of a worry. But again, we've looking towards West Ham at the weekend. We've we've rested some players there. Salah, Firmino, Mane all played, say, half an hour today. Should have fresh legs. We got Henderson off at half time as well. West Ham are going to, they're a tough outfit. They're playing really well, and they've taken points off some of the big sides this season already. City, Tottenham, to name a few. We've really got to watch out for Antonio, especially with our defensive kind of frailties at the minute. But since we lost Van Dijk, it's 3 wins on the bounce for Liverpool. So we've kind of shown that we can grind these results out. We've adapted the way we play a little bit, but we're getting these wins. And I'm confident going into Man City to West Ham at the weekend that we'll still have enough to get the result there. Whether West Ham turn it into a dog of a game, it's David Moyes there. He's got the ability to do that. We'll see, but I'm still quite confident that we're scoring when we need to, and we're able to grind out and dog a game out if we need to.
Yeah, and you mentioned West Ham, and it's worth noting for anybody that listened last week to the show, I did actually say that West Ham would draw with Man City 5-1. So if you did make money on that, you're welcome. You are welcome. That's what we do here. That's what we do here on the podcast. Yeah. And maybe I need some sort of jingle or something, but it's time for Grant's betting tip of the week. So I've looked ahead for the Premier League at the weekend, and I've selected 4 games: Liverpool versus West Ham, Spurs versus Brighton, Leeds versus Leicester, and Villa versus Southampton. Put them in a multi and say that there will be over 2.5 goals in every single one of those games.
I like it.
They're all scoring. I think it's a banker. Yeah. And I think that's paying probably around 7-1, I think, for those 4. So I think listeners should get on that. But as always, you've got to gamble responsibly. You have to gamble responsibly. Yeah. And, one thing you've got to remember, and I always say it, is you never see a bookie with a part-time job. So always remember that.
I mean, I'll definitely put a few dollars on that. You tend to be into it, but yeah, gamble responsibly.
That's it.
On to United. You're in the midst again of your tough run. We keep mentioning it. You keep winning, which is good. For United fans, anyway. Not so much for me. Chelsea at the weekend. You got out there with a draw. How were you feeling about the performance?
Not a classic.
No.
It wasn't a classic, and it was hard to watch at 3:30 on a Sunday morning, I can tell you that. Yeah. It was very tough, but a draw was the right result. They should have had a penalty, in my opinion, but we had the better chances in the game. I think Cavani nearly scored with his first touch, Rashford towards the end. So, if only Kepa was in net, if only he was in net, I think would have got us over the line there. So, yeah, a bit disappointing, but the biggest disappointment for me is he's gone back to... He changed the system from Paris Saint-Germain, which he said don't change. So, I felt sorry for Axel Tanzebe. He played out of his skin at Paris Saint-Germain, and suddenly he's on the bench. There's no Alex Telles. I wanted to see a bit of, Telles there as well. So he's kind of gone back to what he does in the league. And Dan James is starting. And for me, he's not a starting Man United player. He's very much like a Lingard mould, where bring him off the bench. He's almost a player who's better without the ball, because he kind of makes space for other players. That pace and those runs in behind can take defenders away. That's where he's kind of most useful. Right. So I don't want to really see him starting in league games. So yeah, draw a fair result, I would say.
And you've taken points off Chelsea there, one of you, I guess, the kind of the top 6 rivals. Yeah. So I guess you've got to be happy coming out of that one. You'd have taken it probably at kickoff.
Yeah.
You've got the Champions League game tomorrow morning here in Australia. Leipzig. You're talking about the rotation there. Do you think you'll see it again? Do you think you'll see him go back to what might be what looks like a Champions League team?
Maybe.
From the league team. Do you think he'll do that?
Yeah, I think so. I think just because it works so well, and obviously Martial can play in, obviously he's suspended, so Martial can play, so he can come back in. We'll see Tellers again, up and down, fresh legs. So I think we will revert back to that system. Yeah. And it's a big game. It's a must-win game because our group is so tough. And I just hope that beating Paris Saint-Germain means nothing if we get beat at home to Leipzig. You can't take your foot off the gas. We've got to win. We've got to qualify as soon as possible. Leipzig are not easy. They got to the semi-final last year. They're a German team. They always play good football. So, we've got to get the win. And, I kind of want to see, obviously, the boy I've been talking about, Upamecano, will be playing tomorrow, the centre-back that I've been screaming for forever that we should be signing. And I hope he puts in a performance. I still think we hope, we will get the win. It'll be a tight game. But I want him to put in a real good performance, because I think that'll dawn on Man United and say, we should go after this boy in January and pick him up. Because the prediction I have is that if we don't go after him, I believe that Liverpool will sign him in January. And a player like that, 21 years of age, big, strong, fast, can score goals, good on the ball. There is no better centre-back out there at this moment in time that can take the Van Dijk mantle for the rest of the season. And so I think you should go for him. And when Van Dijk comes back, them two will be unstoppable at centre-back. So I'm praying that we go for him, because I really could see him going to you guys. So I want to see a bit of Cavani action later on, and I want to see Tellez starting. I want to see Tanzebi starting, and let's get at him. We're Man United. Let's get at him and let's get the win.
Yeah, you are right. Actually, it's similar to Liverpool this morning. The more so than the performance for me, that the 3 points at this stage in the Champions League is so important. Yeah. You want to get yourself qualified, or as close to qualified as quickly as you can, especially with the games coming thick and fast in the Premier League. Once we get towards mid-November, end of November. As we start to wrap this up, there's so many games coming at you thick and fast. You ideally want to be able to rest some players for the final kind of 2 games of the group stage.
When you're first four, rest for them.
Exactly. So it's important to get those 3 points. And then looking ahead, you've got Arsenal at the weekend. It's Arsenal again. They're a bit up and down, aren't they? And they're showing all the promise, but are not picking up all the results we would expect them to. But I think you're in for a tough game again, because they need to keep kicking on, don't they?
Yeah. No, I agree. I think it will be a tough game. I am pretty confident because, like you say, they've not kind of been all firing. Aubameyang, I look at Aubameyang in particular, 1 goal in 6 games or whatever it is. It's like,
It's mad. How high was everybody on him coming into the season?
Fancy football, named as a midfielder. He was in everybody's team, and I don't think anybody has him anymore.
Pitched him since.
Yeah, I know. So Aubameyang's not quite firing. So we know what's going to happen, don't we? We know what's going to happen now that we're saying that. Yeah, well, who knows? But I am fairly confident in that one. But it'll be a tough game. Partey, as we've said, is a good addition. So again, we've just got to grind it out. I think it'll be a tight game. Not many goals in it. And the interesting thing is, Arteta has a worse record in these first 26 league games as Unai Emery did. And Unai Emery won more, lost less, and scored more goals. But obviously Arteta is the Messiah and the chosen one and all that type of stuff. And interestingly, one thing that I want to mention, and I will throw it back to you, is obviously, I believe, looking at other Premier League games, Manchester City have to bounce back against Sheffield United. Is there any room is there any place for error here for Man City, or do you agree they've got to get going now, haven't they?
Yeah, they do. They've got to start picking up those points, because they're going to slowly. What are they? 13th in the league now.
Something like that.
It's going to be a mad season, and who knows, how it plays out as we go on. But they've got to start picking up points, and it's not a great game to have, even though Sheffield United are struggling this season.
Yeah,
they're still not an easy team to play against. They made it very difficult for Liverpool. They're very good defensively. They're a solid unit. They're going to make it difficult for City, and and they've lost Aguero again now. I think he's out again.
Yeah,
for
he is. Yeah.
They've got to play Liverpool in the next couple of weeks. They need to start picking up points and fast. Where do you think? I don't know. What is it that's different? What are they lacking this season?
It's a good question, because, as I say, you look at the players that they have, and they look at that squad, and you think, they think, what is, Pep Guardiola. You can talk about injuries and you can talk about the schedule, mate. You can't argue about anything. What about Burnley with your schedule? You can talk about Aguero and Jesus and all these playing injured. It's like Burnley would take having Aguero, Jesus, and all these out injured. So then they're forced to play Jay Rodriguez and Chris Wood. Do you know what I mean? So they can't complain. But the thing for me, Matt, to answer the question, and this was brought to my attention yesterday, is I don't think things have been right since Arteta left Manchester City.
Right.
And it seems that timing of he left, and it makes me wonder how important Arteta was to Pep Guardiola in terms of City structure, the confidant in between the players, the coaching aspect to it, and how much Pep leaned on Arteta's knowledge and using him to speak to the players or whatever it would be. Am I off with that or what?
Well, the timing kind of adds up, doesn't it? And you see what effect Arteta's had at Arsenal in terms of just bringing the team together, and the fans as well.
Yeah.
He just seems to have settled things down a bit, and he seems to have that bit of an aura around him, doesn't he? He's a good name, but he seems to be likable. People like what he's about in terms of the way that he wants.
A cool head.
Yeah, and the culture around him. So yeah, it's hard to know, isn't it? You don't know what goes on behind the scenes, and the only people who are going to know that are the City players themselves. You'd have to ask one of them, whether they do seem to miss him in the background there. But it's a good point. The timing does add up, and just to see the effect he's had on Arsenal so far, it could be playing a massive effect. Absolutely,
because Pep didn't want him to leave, did he? Pep was so adamant that he didn't want him to leave.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And you think if you're Pep and you've got your right hand man there, any top manager like that has the kind of the coach and the right hand man that they probably lean on more than we think. And they obviously the right hand man doesn't get as much of the limelight or the praise probably, but they probably do a lot of the hard work that goes on behind the scenes in terms of the day-to-day coaching on the training pitch. Liaising with players, they might have a bit of a good cop, bad cop relationship. You don't know how that dynamic works, but clearly they've pulled the plug on that one, and he's not replaced it, Guardiola. And as he kind of navigates this season, you wonder how it's going to affect him, just personally as well, and mentally. He's going to have to be picking up on a lot of those things that potentially Arteta did that now Guardiola's got to do, and maybe it's not his cup of tea, or it's not how he wants to handle it.
Yeah.
So it's a good observation, and I think. Only time will tell. But you're right. City need to start picking up points ASAP. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. I think that kind of wraps us up for today. We both got to get back to work for one. But thanks everyone again for listening. If you've enjoyed the content, hit the subscribe button. It makes sure you won't miss out on any of our content. Share it with your friends. Give us a like and all that kind of stuff. Thank you very much. Take it easy, and we'll see you very soon.